The crypto world is absolutely exploding right now after one unbelievable narrative started spreading across social media. And honestly, the reaction became so massive so quickly that even longtime crypto investors were shocked. Because suddenly, rumors started flying everywhere. Influencers began posting nonstop. Financial commentators jumped into the discussion. XRP communities exploded. And investors everywhere started asking one unbelievable question. Is JP Morgan preparing a move involving Coinbase? And if Wall Street starts aggressively positioning itself inside the crypto industry, could Ripple eventually become part of a much larger financial battle for digital infrastructure dominance? Because historically, the biggest financial shifts rarely begin with official announcements. They begin with speculation, questions, unusual activity, strategic positioning, and conversations that most people ignore until much later. That's exactly why so many investors suddenly feel like something much bigger may be happening underneath the surface right now. Now, before we go any further, let's make something extremely important clear immediately, because social media exaggerates financial headlines faster than almost anything online. There's NO verified evidence that JP Morgan is buying Coinbase. There's NO official confirmation proving Ripple is involved in an acquisition war. There is NO public announcement confirming any takeover discussions. And this video is definitely not financial advice. But what we are going to discuss is why acquisition rumors generate so much attention, why institutions are becoming increasingly interested in blockchain infrastructure, and why XRP supporters believe Ripple may be positioned around some of the biggest financial transformations happening in modern history. Because honestly, once you begin understanding where the financial world appears to be heading, the excitement surrounding these stories suddenly starts making much more sense. Now think carefully about what is happening globally right now. Artificial intelligence is transforming industries. Governments are building crypto frameworks. Banks are modernizing settlement systems. Asset managers are exploring tokenization. Institutions are researching blockchain infrastructure. And financial organizations everywhere are preparing for increasingly digital ecosystems. That transformation is real. And the craziest part? Most ordinary people still don't fully realize how enormous this transition could eventually become. Now, let's talk about Coinbase. Because whether people love it or hate it, Coinbase became one of the most important companies in crypto history. For millions of investors, Coinbase was their first experience buying digital assets. It became one of the most recognized crypto brands in the world. It built institutional relationships. It participated in regulatory discussions. It expanded crypto access globally. And over time, it evolved into a major piece of crypto infrastructure. That's important, because infrastructure assets become extremely valuable when industries mature. And that's exactly why acquisition rumors surrounding major companies often generate enormous attention. Now think carefully about how Wall Street usually operates. Large institutions rarely focus on hype. They focus on infrastructure, liquidity, compliance, operational efficiency, market access, long-term strategic advantages. That's critical to understand, because institutional finance operates very differently from emotional retail speculation. While retail investors often chase headlines, large financial organizations spend years studying future opportunities. Years, not weeks, not months, years. That's exactly why blockchain infrastructure became increasingly important to institutional finance. Because large financial organizations are not simply asking, can crypto prices go higher? Instead, they're asking, how can blockchain improve financial efficiency? How can settlement systems become faster? How can liquidity move more efficiently globally? How can tokenized assets operate in future markets? Those are trillion-dollar questions. And that's exactly where Ripple enters the conversation. Because honestly, Ripple spent years focusing on institutional problems, cross-border settlement, liquidity movement, financial interoperability, payment modernization, global transaction efficiency. Those are enormous financial conversations. And now suddenly, the financial world itself appears to be moving directly toward the exact areas Ripple spent years preparing for. That's why XRP supporters remain so passionate. Because many believe Ripple built infrastructure for a future that institutions are only now beginning to embrace. Now think carefully about what happens if blockchain adoption continues expanding globally. Banks need efficient settlement. Governments need regulatory frameworks. Asset managers need tokenization solutions. Financial institutions need interoperability. And liquidity becomes increasingly important. Those developments create enormous opportunities for infrastructure providers. That's why XRP supporters believe Ripple could become increasingly important if digital finance continues evolving. Now, let's talk about tokenization because honestly, this may become one of the biggest financial revolutions of the next decade. Most ordinary people still don't fully understand how massive tokenization could eventually become. Imagine stocks trading digitally worldwide, real estate becoming globally tradable, government bonds settling through blockchain systems, assets moving across borders more efficiently, financial markets operating 24 hours a day, programmable financial systems automating complex transactions. That future sounds futuristic today, but institutions are actively preparing for it right now. Banks are researching blockchain aggressively. Governments are building digital finance strategies. Asset managers are investing heavily into tokenization research. And financial organizations globally are preparing for increasingly digital ecosystems. Now think carefully about what happens if enormous amounts of value eventually move through blockchain networks worldwide. Liquidity becomes critical. Settlement efficiency becomes essential. Interoperability becomes incredibly valuable. Infrastructure providers become increasingly important. And organizations already positioned around those areas may attract significant institutional attention. That's exactly why XRP supporters remain extremely focused on Ripple. Because Ripple specifically focused on moving liquidity efficiently between systems. Now, let's return to the acquisition rumors. Because honestly, whether these rumors are true or not isn't the most interesting part. The most interesting part is why investors find them believable. Think about that. A few years ago, the idea of major financial institutions aggressively pursuing crypto infrastructure sounded ridiculous to many people. Today, it sounds possible. Why? Because the financial world changed. Digital assets became mainstream. Governments started building regulations. Institutions entered the industry. Tokenization conversations accelerated. Blockchain adoption expanded. And financial infrastructure modernization became a serious priority. That's a huge shift. Now again, balance matters. There's no guarantee JP Morgan buys Coinbase. There's no guarantee Ripple becomes part of an acquisition battle. There's no guarantee XRP dominates future finance. Competition remains intense. Stablecoins continue growing. Central bank digital currencies remain a possibility. Private banking networks may expand. And nobody knows exactly how adoption unfolds. But what feels increasingly undeniable is this. The financial world is transforming rapidly. Digital infrastructure is expanding globally. Institutional blockchain adoption is accelerating. Tokenization conversations are exploding worldwide. And major financial organizations are paying far more attention to blockchain technology than they were just a few years ago. That transformation alone is enough to explain why rumors involving JP Morgan, Coinbase, Ripple, Wall Street, tokenization, and digital infrastructure create such enormous excitement. Because whether people fully realize it yet or not, the race to control the next generation of financial infrastructure may already be underway. And many XRP holders believe the biggest moves will happen quietly, long before the average investor understands what is really taking place behind closed doors.